Yeah. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. Thanks for joining us here on Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm Howard Bender. I got Andrew Cooper here bopping along to the music. And oh, baby, we got a show for you here today. We know like NFL Week 14. I'm like still just in complete disbelief that we're here already in NFL Week 14. Coop, playoffs are being determined left and right. I mean, this was a killer week here. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. We will hit with the waiver wire talk today. We'll give you our top 3 waiver wire picks at each position, maybe throw in a bonus play or 2 here and there. We will hit all of those questions in the chat. We thank you all for being here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you love the content that we're bringing you here. And my man Mile High Luke, who's hanging out already in the chat, seems to be. Well, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Check out all the work that we've got over at fantasyalarm.com. We'll talk about subscribing in a little bit because we're just, we're hoping to, help you guys for the holidays out here. But Coop, my man, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, dude. I gotta say, it's so funny how all the stuff we say in the offseason, the beginning of the year, we talk about fantasy playoffs and how you can't handcuff and you can't do this, how it all flips on its head right now. We're like, fantasy playoffs for me in half my league started last week, right? Like I just barely won last week. I have to win this week in a bunch of leagues. So a lot of that stuff goes out the window. And I want to get your thoughts because now that we're getting into crunch time, man, it's like a lot of those philosophies that people cling to about never having 2 defenses, never having 2 tight ends, not handcuffing, right? Like now you look around and the teams that pull it out, those are the moves you gotta make, man. You gotta make moves like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Listen, I play in a league, the Greenwich Street Tavern League. And shout out to Chris Vaccaro and Adam Ronas for bringing me into that league. And they do the draft at the Greenwich Street Tavern in New York every year. They've made an exception for me because of travel and stuff like that. But, there's no waivers after week 14. This is the last time. So if you have to, you have to stock up your team. You need 2 defenses. You need 2 kickers. That actually bit me in the ass. I think it was like 2 years ago in the playoffs where my kicker got hurt and I didn't have a backup kicker and I couldn't add somebody in week 16. So I was like, well, damn, now I got to take a 0 in that spot. So yeah, listen, I think that this is, with the trade deadline gone, this is an important time to really set that roster up for the long haul, right? Handcuff your running backs in case something happens. Stockpile on some wide receivers who have a clear path to targets who may get a bigger path if there are injuries, right? Like, I mean, Noah Brown on waivers this week, people are going to go absolute banana cakes for him with Tank Dell being out, right? Robert Woods moves to the outside. He, shares a little bit with John Mechie. And the next thing you know, you got Noah Brown taking all those snaps out of the slot, running around, bip, 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 bip. And we know how much CJ Stroud likes to find him.
Let's go, dude. And on the flip side of that, it's all that stashing, all the deep stash guys you quote unquote believed in, and the talent is there and they just need to play more. If that's not happening now, say bye-bye. Like Marvin Mims, I get it, dude. He ran back that punt. That was really cool, right? He had that one game where he had 2 catches for 115 yards. And we were all like, just wait till this guy plays. Look, we've waited long enough. We've waited long enough. If they're not playing yet, you gotta cut bait unless you can see a path, right?
But Coop, Marvin Mims is going up against the Chargers this week.
You should see his yards per route run. It's like, dude, his route, which is a great stat by the way, but his route, you need more than 10 routes run to really take advantage of that. So yes, if you got a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba who is playing. And if someone gets hurt, then it's wheels up. Yes, of course. But if they have no standalone value right now, the time for stashing upside plays outside of keeper and dynasty leagues is over, right? Let's focus on the guys we can use. Let's batten down the hatches and let's get ready to steamroll your friends and family and let them know how much smarter you are than them. Because that's what this is really all about.
Yeah, 100%, man. You are 100% laying down the words of wisdom right here. Now, before we start talking waivers, Kevin Tompkins, he's in that Marvin Mims conference.
He goes, he did drop him at least, but yeah, I know, Kev. Kev, you're a
loser.
That's what I was going for.
I was gonna give him a big hug, but
I was gonna say,
shout out to Brian Burns.
Kev's a dreamer, but knows when to be realistic as well. Sometimes the dreamers take it too far, but Kev is a dreamer. And the thing is, Kev, being the dreamer you are, you do hit on a lot of the young breakouts that guys like me drafted dusty wide receivers miss on. But yes, it's time to give up. I want to ask you one that are while we're bashing fantasy analysts and their dreams, our own John and Pembo was really in on Jalen Hyatt. Is he still? Are we still holding there, or is it?
This is that time of year where those teams that are out of it are auditioning players, right? I mean, just take a look at what Jonathan Mingo did this past week instead of Adam Thielen, and that I think is something that we definitely need to focus on when we're looking at some of these bottom feeding teams. They're not going to just pack it in. They're not just going to, call it quits for the season. This is that time where they start auditioning those players to see, did they use the right draft capital on them? Is there something that they can get out of them? And looking ahead towards next season, is this guy going to be competing for a roster spot? So yeah, I definitely think that that Hyatt is definitely somebody that you want to keep an eye on. I mean, again, if you're going to stockpile guys like, in the GST league, I have a deep bench. I might be able to swap somebody out for Jalen Hyatt, who's just sitting there.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's where we're at. And the difference is that Jalen Hyatt ran the second most routes on his team in the last game they played. So they're already kind of giving him a shot, him and Wan'Dale Robinson. Whereas Marvin Mims is like four. Last game he was fourth. They ran 60 snaps. He only played 18 of them. So it's like they got to at least have a chance at it. So I'm with you. I'm with you on Hyatt. We'll give Johnny and Pems a pass on them.
All right. Rex Timotheus trolling me. Yes, I am incorrect. The Jets gave it up weeks ago. You're so mean, Rex. You're so mean. You're such a nice guy, and yet turn out so mean.
You got these Colts fans that technically are in the playoffs, and look at what they do to us, Howard. You know what I mean?
Horrible. I give my left nut for Gardner Minshew on my roster right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's true. they get one glimpse of the playoffs, and all of a sudden, they got to come at us, dude.
Now, here's a good one here. Chargy 65 in the house, right? Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer are available, and I'm thinking of dropping Downs and or Rashid Shaheed for one or both of them. Am I crazy? I mean, all right. Elijah Moore, clear path to targets here with Joe Flacco under center. Joshua Palmer, I can't imagine a team more desperate for a wide receiver to return than the Chargers waiting on Josh Palmer. The question is, though, Downs and Shaheed, are they expendable?
Yeah, that's tough, man. With Palmer, I'm only going to grab him if I can put him in an IR spot, to be honest, because, we just don't know whether he's going to come back or not and what the situation is going to be. They haven't even opened his window, so he's still eligible in IR in all formats. So if you can throw him in there, I think that makes sense, but I'm not going to use a roster spot on him. And the thing with Shaheed is that we could be getting Jameis Winston, which could unlock Mr. Shaheed and what he does best. So I don't know.
I think he's been unlocked even with Derek Carr. I mean, he is that deep threat. He is that number 2 guy, even especially without Michael Thomas.
Yeah, well, but Jameis Winston's really willing to shut his brain off and just let it fly, though.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to a very interesting situation here, Andrew.
What you got?
And I have to.
Oh, I'm being called Andrew.
I spoke to Jonathan and Pemba earlier today.
Oh boy!
And so here we go. So let's Monday Night Football. Crazy what that did. The Bengals beating the Jaguars shook survivor pools up everywhere. Everywhere. Now, I'm in 2 survivor pools, right? One of them 150K on the line. Right. And the other one, 25K on the line.
Still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for both of them. Those are how many people were in those? Thousands. Well,
so hundreds. There were 1,200 in the 25K one. It was $25 an entry and no buybacks and 1,200 people in there. So there's roughly about 25K in there, maybe a little bit less. 24K possibly. All right. So that's one. The other one, it was $55 an entry. right? And then you could buy back, right, up to week 8 for $100 per entry. So you were able to do that, which is what's juiced the pot.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I took the Jags in the 150K one last night. Yes, exactly, right? So you know exactly how I feel. In the 25K one, I took the Bucks.
Okay, you're alive.
I'm alive. There are only 7 people left in this pool right now.
Yes.
Somebody already proposed a full chop, tip the host 10% of the pot and then split evenly 7 ways. So it comes down to roughly 3K. I had 4 entries in there, right? 5 entries in there at $20 a pop. So 5 entries in there. I have 1 entry left. So I paid $100 to get into this thing.
Yeah.
And so if I chop, which has to be a unanimous decision, then I'm at least getting $3,000, right? I'm 30xing my money here, which is sweet, right? But here you go. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
This is what the scenario is for this week. All 7 of us have the Steelers available. Steelers are minus 300 on the money line. They take on the Patriots Thursday, but it's Mitch Trubisky. 3 of us have the Saints still left. Now, I say us because I have these teams as well. So 3 of us have the Saints. Jameis Winston under center, but it's a home game against Carolina. The third option that I have, and I'm the only person who has the Baltimore Ravens right now. 7-point favorite over the Rams. They're at home, and they're a minus 350 favorite on the money line. So they have the best odds, but Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, this isn't like just some pushover schlub team.
Oh, man. But
so that's the dilemma. Do I accept the chop? Now, listen, I could accept the chop and somebody, one of the other guys could be like, go fuck yourself. And, we're not chopping. And that's, which is totally fine by me. I don't want to be the guy who holds up the chop and then loses this week. But then the question is okay, if we don't chop, I mean, I've got to take the Ravens, don't I? As the only team who has the Ravens and hope that the Steelers and the Saints both lose.
Dude, if they don't, even if they win, dude, you can start the Saints next week against the Giants.
I could start the Saints next week against the Giants, the Jaguars at home against, I don't even know who the tomato can is that they play in week 17.
Yeah, I think that with something like this, I would, at the very first and foremost, this should be a blind or silent vote. Everyone should send an email. You shouldn't know.
Right. Nobody knows. Yeah, no. The host of the pool is the one who sent out the email. He BCC'd everybody in there, so nobody sees email addresses or anything like that at all.
Yeah. Well, then I say you gotta play to your strength, man. You have an advantage over everybody, man. You have the advantage. And I think it's worth it to roll the dice on turning $3,000 into 25. I think it's worth it, man. I think it's worth it. And then maybe chop next week, depending on how it shakes out. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be on the table every week, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely sure. The only thing that concerns me, even, in the realm, is what it would be like in week 18, right? Like I said, if I took the Ravens this week, next week I can take the Saints at home against the Giants. Beautiful, right? Great, grand, no yelling on the bus. In week 16, all right, then I can turn around and it's where was it? Week 16. Oh, I don't know. Broncos over the Patriots at home. That's a possibility.
You could take the Steelers with a backup Bengals QB too.
I could take the Steelers with a backup, right? Yep. I could do that. Jets against the Commanders. No, I'm just kidding on that one. Right? All of a sudden it gets a little hinky in week 16 because, it's like, where do I go? I could take the Bears over the Cardinals and hope that Justin Fields outduels, stuff like that. So it does get a little.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like letting it ride, dude. I like letting it ride. Place a nice little wager on the Rams to hedge there, and just
Yeah.
bet on the Rams and the Rams money line. You put a couple $100 on that, and then I like the hedge. I like the hedge move there because you're gonna then you pull. You can bet like with the money line. You could probably bet like $500 to win $1,000, and you're walking away with $1,000 no matter what, right? And then otherwise, and then you could chop. Like I think you leave yourself more. I like that, man. Especially because you have the advantage on everybody. You got to be selfish with this stuff. If you were the one that was in the bat, like not a great spot. Plus, I guarantee somebody else out there is like, I'm not chopping. So.
I'm just kind of waiting to see. I will submit my answer. I'm crowdsourcing this all over the place. I got Skinny McKinney who says not to chop.
Yeah, chat. What are you doing? The chat ain't chopping, dude.
You know what? One person told me to chop. You're telling me not to chop. Skinny says don't chop. So, listen, I'm gathering the information here right now. The funny thing about all this, and Skinny, keep your mouth shut. My wife doesn't know about this pool. Yeah. My wife is right now currently sitting in like a sea of sadness because we watched the game last night and she thought that, it was all about the Jags or nothing. Like I haven't told her about this secret pool I'm in.
Ooh, wow. And then you got to be rooting hard against her Giants the following week if that's
the
case.
Listen, she'll root against her Giants if it means pulling in $25K. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that.
Secret pool.
Mile High Luke says no chop, not with those matchups left. There'll be chop options each week moving forward. Yep, 100%. Skinny with the zip up mouth. Yep, thank you.
What did Vanilla Bean say? Did he say to chop?
Of course, Vanilla Bean said to chop.
He'd be buying. He would that money would already be spent on basketball cards by now if that was him, dude.
Well, the worst part. I'll give you. Let me throw an added worse in there. Obviously, it's the holiday time, and $3,000 in your pocket is great. To add to the misery here, during the game last night, I broke a tooth.
Jesus Christ.
So now I'm dealing with mouth pain. I got to go to the dentist. I'm going to end up, I just paid the dentist like $10,000 for Deb's mouth, like her work that she needed done.
Please email everyone and say, send an email out to everybody in the league and say, can we chop this? I need a tooth.
That'll be $5,000.
Please, bro.
Oh, man.
Can we chop this? I need a tooth.
Brutal. It's brutal. Can we chop this? I need a tooth.
That's
the dilemma that I'm in. If you've got your shared thoughts, here's my Twitter handle @RotoBuzzGuy. You're not allowed to say anything to my wife. If you call into Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, you can't say anything there. I will be crowdsourcing over there, right? But I'm going to be asking for a friend.
Deb doesn't even follow me on Twitter. I follow her. What the heck? She's very stingy.
She's not even a Twitter person.
She's not on there much. Yeah.
She's not on there. She's in there because she likes doing some of the chats for like Scott Fishbowl and some of the other leagues that we're doing.
Yeah, that is fun.
All right. So there you go. I'm just going to let that all marinate. I've got Tank Williams, former NFL safety, joining me today on the Fantasy Alarm Show at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I'm going to ask Tank, because Tank's doing fantasy football stuff. He's doing a lot of betting analysis. I'm gonna throw Tank into the conversation there as well.
You couldn't have Tank on when I'm on tomorrow? What the heck?
Oh yeah, I arranged that properly.
Because you're right. Because I would have been like, what is it like in the league? I would have been fanboying. So
you get the wheel of randomness, right? You don't get Tank Williams.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Let's get to some NFL news before we start talking about we give you our top waiver claims at each position here. Number one, there's a lot of injury news going on here, Coop. So let's hit them one at a time. Ramondre Stevenson. He's expected to miss several weeks. Again, Pittsburgh taking on New England on the short week. You still had a pretty hefty workload for Ezekiel Elliott, right? What do you have, like 92 rushing yards?
Yeah.
So, what we're looking at here for the Patriots, are they packing it in? And what do you expect out of this offense with probably their best weapon now on the shelf?
Yeah, they got to be very tactical to make sure they lose these last couple of games and keep that high pick, man. And I will say, the one thing I want to say on this topic is that I've come around a long way on the idea of this hip drop tackle and the possibility of banning it. Good friend of the show, Fantasy Pro Dynasty Pros Dustin Ludke pointed out that it's been successfully banned in other sports. A couple rugby leagues have managed to ban this tackle, and basically they just treat it like the face mask and the horse collar at a very young age. They teach everybody not to do it, and apparently it's a pretty over there. Like they look at it the same way we look at a face mask. Like if somebody does it, everyone's like, "That's dirty." So I guess it is possible to ban that tackle, and I've come around. I think I'm on team. Get rid of the hip, the version of it where you like clearly grab the hips and roll up on the legs. I'm kind of on board with it.
Okay. All right. Are you on board with Ezekiel Elliott?
I am, and I'll give a full rundown when we get to the waiver claims. I got something to say on that. So yeah, I'm in.
Right on. All right. Another injury news here. Matt LaFleur is saying the team's not sure of the severity of Christian Watson's hamstring injury, but we know that this is a recurring issue. Like this dude has hamstrings that are like made out of like Cheetos.
I just crunch up.
They just snap right there. So here we go. Watson possibly down. Does that do more for you for Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, that crew? Jordan Love's cruising right now. Does it falter without Christian Watson, or is it still wheels up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team could potentially make the playoffs here. And if I were them, this week in particular, you're favored against the Giants. I don't know if I'd rush him back here. So for this week, all those guys are viable, especially in DFS. And I think Dontavian Wicks probably goes back to what he was doing early in the season, where he just takes over that Watson role, plays outside. Reed keeps his normal job with a couple more targets. Romeo Doubs as well. Even Tucker Kraft is more viable now. So, this was a team where the problem was the targets were too thin. So, I mean, for fantasy football purposes, why don't you take your time, Christian?
Addition by subtraction.
That's what I mean. I'm right there.
I like it. On the Zach Ertz front, John Harbaugh said he likes their tight ends, and he's ready to roll with the guys that he has there. Any rumors that you're hearing about where Zach Ertz can land? You and I both said the Ravens were a phenomenal spot. Here's
my unbiased opinion on the Ravens not bringing in Zach Ertz. Yes. Because I have
likely to.
I have likely in a few leagues where we're kind of paper mache in that over Mark Andrews, right? So, and we got some targets last week. He started the game hot. Like he got like 5 in the first half, and I was like crafting tweets to send. And in the second half, he didn't really do anything. So, but I like Isaiah Likely. The interesting thing with Ertz was the video of Dallas Goedert's reaction. Normally with these guys, when they ask about these old teammates, they all say the same thing. They're like, come on back, man. Like, let's go. We'd love to see him back. Dallas Goedert was like, very rare to see that happen. And I know he's going to land on his feet, like whatever ends up happening.
Because he doesn't want to get replaced. He's sitting there with a freaking busted arm, right? He's like, no, let me back. Let me back.
He's like, yeah, exactly. Where it's like he finally escaped that situation. But I don't think Goddard would even be replaced. I think it would be Quez Watkins and Alameda Zacchaeus and those guys that would lose the snaps there if Ertz showed up there. I still personally, I haven't heard any rumors outside of everyone speculating, but I still think that the Cowboys could use him as as kind of the move tight end there. And he would have an opportunity to be the best pass catching tight end on the team right away. So kind of interesting, but he wants to go to a contender. The worst rumor I heard, and Burns get ready, was that he might go, the Buffalo Bills were interested, and that he could end up over there hurting our boy Dalton Kincaid. After he finally got let free.
Oh, I like the Doves. I like that.
But like glorious. The last thing I want is to have now a 3-way split between Knox and Kincaid and Ertz. Like that would just be awful, man. So that's the one I least want. I don't care about any of the other ones. Go to the Eagles. I have no Dallas Goedert. Go to the Eagles. Go home.
All right. And then finally, Dan Campbell saying that Frank Ragnow, their center, might not play in week 14. We're going to have to wait and see. That's a big deal for the ground game, especially against the Bears. The Bears they've got a good pass rush. They've got a good solid run D. Frank Ragnow being out, that could really complicate things for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery owners. Maybe more for Montgomery owners, but still not good.
Yeah.
Not
So
good.
Britt Flynn, shout out Frank Ragnow, Arkansas. She knows some people that Frank. I guess the Arkansas guys, they used to all work as bouncers. The big linemen during college, they'd go work as bouncers, and Britt, obviously working within that scene, knows some of those guys. So we'll have to see if she can use her secret channels to figure out what the deal is there. See if we get an inside track. But yeah, him being out, man, that'd be terrible. People don't realize how important the center is, the quarterback of the offensive line. Like Peyton Manning said it for years and years. Jeff Saturday was the most important player on that team. Obviously, everyone knows that he was, but he would say that Saturday was. So, like, those centers, man, sometimes you get a backup center in there that doesn't know the audibles, doesn't know what's going on, and it's a nightmare.
Oh, that was the year, was it 2016, 2018? When did the Patriots beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl?
That was 2018.
2018. The Falcons signed Alex Mack during that offseason. And I immediately tweeted out that I'm in on the Falcons because of what Mack was going to be able to do to that offensive line. I actually threw money on the Falcons to win the Super Bowl that year. People thought I was nuts when I was like, I put money on the Falcons to win the NFC. That happened. I put money on them to win the division. It was all about Alex Mack, and that was it was a fantastic move there. So yeah, definitely want to jump on that. All right, we got some questions. You put your Twitch glasses on here, Coop, because
let's go.
Youngstar 210 in the house here. He dropped the Bills defense for Alexander Madison to have him stashed on the bench. Should I pick back up the Bills defense and drop my second kicker, Dustin Hopkins, or do I just leave it alone?
I mean, who's your kicker? Oh, your kicker's
Justin
Tucker, dude. You got a Hall of Famer, dude. Opera singer, legend. One of the few guys they let kick from, they'll wheel him out to kick from 70.
From anywhere.
They don't care. Yeah, so Justin Tucker, lock it in. Yeah, go. I'm starting Tucker rest of the season, so just go and grab another guy. And the thing with Dustin Hopkins is he was scoring a ton of points, but once Deshaun Watson got hurt, that kind of fell off, man. Hopkins has not been himself, quote unquote, lately because it's out of his hands to some degree.
Yeah. He's also got the Saints D, but listen, I don't mind adding the Bills D at the expense of a second kicker, because listen, if your league doesn't have a rule that says that you can't pick up anybody else in the playoffs, then just roll with Justin Tucker. And if something happens to him at all, you just pick up another kicker. So just kind of leave it at that point and go from there. So yes, to adding the Bills defense. I think it's a solid defensive unit to use in fantasy, and you can play those matchups between them and the Saints wherever you want to go. So I like that. Chargy 65, who's telling me not to chop. I know, definitely opportunities there. Original cheese puff or the crunchy Cheetos? Coop, which one?
For Christian Watson's hamstrings, or which ones do I like better?
Which one do you like better?
We
already know that it's the crunchy kind for his hamstrings.
For the crunchy kind for the hamstrings. I think I like honestly, I got to admit that I'm not a big Cheetos guy, but the original ones I would go with.
All right, we're done with you now.
I'm just not a big Cheetos guy. What do you want me to do, dude?
Nino Pena in the house. Would you guys consider dropping Drake London or Deontay Johnson for Jackson Smith and Jigba? Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
Just clear a path to targets for the other two guys.
Right. Yeah, he's coming on, but there's just not. I just wish he was a full-time player, man. And you see what happens sometimes with these guys. And I was more like I was saying, we love Jaden Reed, we love Josh Downs in Dynasty because we think they're going to be full-time players at some point. You saw with Josh Downs what happens sometimes when you're not a full-time guy. He's just, there's a ceiling to what you can do, whereas there's no ceiling for Deontay Johnson or Drake London.
Yeah, I'm with you. What does he say? And with Stroud playing the Jets and Howell on bye, should I run with Stroud or pick up Browning, Minshew, Geno? Just run with Stroud. Just run with Stroud. Yeah.
We got to put this. We got to put this all in perspective, right? We like Noah Brown, but is Noah Brown a superstar? Is Robert Woods all of a sudden amazing, or is it just because C.J. Stroud is good? Like I've seen how many games we watched Nico Collins play where he didn't look amazing, and then C.J. Stroud shows up and now he's a superstar. Like Stroud is the key piece of the formula here.
I agree. All right. Youngstar, yes, it's a good week to play the Saints defense against the Panthers. 100%. 100%. Yeet 56 in here. Is Christian Kirk done? And does he pick up Brandon Cooks and drop Kirk? Now, I haven't seen a recent update here on Kirk. So I don't know the extent of his injury right now.
Yeah,
But
that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough.
If he's got a potential long-term injury, I would definitely make the move to add Cooks over him, especially with the way Dallas has been playing.
Yeah, the last update I did say is that Christian Kirk is going to miss time. So it's a core muscle injury. And when I hear that, I worry sports hernia, right? And then sometimes you have to have that surgery where like they put in like the surgical mesh or whatever. Like Christian Kirk could be done if it's a sports hernia. And that's the exact area where that happens.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
That's right, dude.
All right. So yes to Cooks and dropping Kirk. I mean, I would try and wait until the very last second until you hear the news, but it's a move I go with.
Wait as long as you can.
Dustin Lutke's in the house. Thank you. It's up, Dustin.
We gave Dustin a shout out on the show earlier. Not sure if you were here earlier, but I have to go back and rewind and look for the Dustin Lutkey shout out.
Brad T says, Howard, please accept my apology if I'm not allowed to say thanks for all the fantasy help, but thanks, Coop and Howard. Listen, Brad, the only time that we don't like the thank yous is when we got to like roll through like a series of like 15 callers on Sirius XM in the morning. But you know what? You can say thank you all you want here. And you know what? You're welcome.
This is the show. This is the show for silly stuff and crazy stuff and whatever the heck you guys want to talk about. It's that morning show is so hectic that people need advice, and that's where Howard has to line everybody up and get at the ducks in a row. Here, throw it out there, man. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk. You want to talk about Cheetos? Go right ahead. I don't know much about them, but Howard sounds like he's an expert.
Oh, Kirk is having groin surgery, according to Dustin. So there you have it. Drop Kirk, get Cooks, 100%. Brad also wants to know Garrett Wilson or Josh Downs for the playoffs. I mean, I don't even know how you trust Garrett Wilson at this point. Not with Trevor Siemian, not with Tim Boyle. I mean, it's upsetting. It's upsetting.
Right.
I'd probably lock in Josh Downs.
I think so too, man. Yeah, we don't even know what's going on with QB. And dude, I just gotta say, we brushed over it, but and honestly, like I know what the procedure is, but groin surgery sounds terrible.
I've handled dozens of balls.
That sounds. Send the message to that Pick'em group or Survivor pool. Be like, we got to chop here. I'm having groin surgery.
I'm having groin surgery.
Everyone will chop. Everyone will chop.
I need an extra epidural to numb everything below the equator.
Dude, if somebody says they need the money for groin surgery and you don't chop, you are the Grinch, dude. You're the devil, dude. Yeah. But that surgery actually, for fantasy football purposes, for long term, actually is a very high success rate because I've done a lot of research on it to figure out like these guys. Marshawn Lynch's best season.
We're not. We don't care. We don't care.
Okay.
We're not. Nobody's asking if we drop him in Dynasty. The dude's having surgery on his groin.
That's true.
Bye bye.
No,
Let's talk waiver wire. That's where it's
today, Junior.
All right. Fine.
Right, let's get the relevant stuff in there. I don't want to hear about Marshawn. Have I ever told you my Marshawn Lynch story?
You have.
Okay,
I don't want to hear about it, dude.
Marshawn Lynch, dude.
Okay.
F Marshawn Lynch. What we want to do right now is we're gonna take a pause from the chat. We'll come back to it in a little bit. We want to give you the Fantasy Alarm top 3 waiver wire ads at each position. Andrew Cooper, Howard Bender here. We are looking at Britt Flynn's article over at fantasyalarm.com, and we're hitting up with that. That's a free article. Go check it out. We're going to take a look at it here. Let's start. Oh, look at that. There's a QR code. If you don't have a subscription to Fantasy Alarm, you don't need one to go read the waiver wire article. But if you want all the other illustrious content like Coop's tight end stuff, or how about the snap counts article that Coop puts in time and time again? How about the DFS work?
The DFS stuff is where all the money is, man. That's where you make your money back this week on the entire, your entire subscription is the DFS stuff, because that's our bread and butter. And we have experts for every position that go through. I do tight ends. John does QBs. Colby does the wide receivers. Reeland does the running backs. Malin does the defense. It's like the Megatron, right? Or the Power Rangers, where each of the piece of the leg. And then Howard takes his own
You're
research.
thinking of Voltron.
Voltron's what I wanted. Yeah. It's like Voltron, right? And we do all that, and then Howard takes all that and his own stuff, and he does the dartboard and the playbook.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Right?
So basically, it's like Voltron, and that's
we got a lot to edit out of this segment before we post it onto the YouTube channel.
Oh, is this a segment?
This was supposed to be a segment, but
nice,
alas,
nice clean clip.
Coop digresses. Go figure.
Voltron is what I'm telling you. Fantasy Alarm, Voltron.
Voltron. Okay. In the meantime, top 3 quarterbacks on your waiver wire right now. Britt Flynn's got the article over at fantasyalarm.com. Here we go, Coop. Who do you like out of your favorites here? Jordan Love, Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston.
Yeah, man. Here, this part of the season to me, it's all about trust. And that's the problem that I run into with a guy like Jameis is that we know he can have weeks that he can have blow up weeks. So if you just need a guy to fill in for 1 week for whatever reason, maybe you go with him. The guy I like is Jordan Love. Even though Christian Watson's banged up, we saw him earlier in the year with these guys, and he actually played great earlier in the year with just the couple guys there. The matchups for him, including this week. So if you have must-win matchup now, it's not just about his playoff schedule. He has Giants, Buccaneers, Panthers, Vikings, right? 4 in a row. Bing, bang, boom. And he's getting hot at the right time. Jordan Love is the guy that I want out of this group.
Okay, Jordan Love. Your top 3 running backs on the waiver wire right now. We've got them listed here. Ezekiel Elliott, Tajay Spears, Kenneth Gainwell. Now, Elliott's the only one who's got that clear path right now to immediate touches, although Derrick Henry is concussed right now. We're going to have to wait and see on Tajay Spears. Kenneth Gainwell, definitely more of a stash, I think, at this point with the Eagles. Who do you like, Coop?
Yeah, so DeAndre Swift left the game at the end with a little bit of an injury. Let's see what we get on news on that. If he were to be out long-term, then Gainwell would be the guy. The problem is that Gainwell needs these negative game scripts. He finally got more snaps than Swift in the rare negative game script for the Eagles, but look at their schedule, man. It's a cakewalk for these Eagles. Honestly, after the Cowboys game, they're going to get the Giants twice, the Cardinals. So it's probably just going to be Swift season. For me, it's got to be Ezekiel Elliott, man. The one thing we know about this guy is that even now, and even going back to last year, he can get that yard when everyone knows that you just need a yard. And for running backs like this, like all it takes is a pass interference in the end zone or any play that goes down to the goal line, and that's going to be a Zeke touchdown because it's not going to be a QB sneak. It's not going to be anything else. So, and he got the full role. He did all the work. So I have a league where I'm dropping bank on this guy. I have $40 left. I'm the only person that has more than 35. I'm dropping 36. That's where I'm at. So I'm getting Zeke.
There you go. All right. Top waiver wire claims at the wide receiver position. We usually go 3, but maybe I got a bonus one in here for you. Coop, Noah Brown, Tank Dell out for the season. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Cheeto hamstring. Elijah Moore, he's got Joey Flacco, and Amari Cooper is concussed right now. And then the bonus round here from the Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Mingo.
Right. If you were hurting that wide receiver, man, and you need wide receiver help, what a gift, right? This setup here, because, these guys are all going to be viable. We were wondering how Noah Brown could keep the streak going, his like monster game streak coming back to this group. Well, Tank Dell's done for the year. So Noah Brown, honestly, to me, feels like the safest and the most upside. He's the guy I'm going after first. Romeo Doubs is fairly safe. He was good earlier in the season. Jonathan Mingo, obviously Elijah Moore, if Amari Cooper's out, is another one. So I'm doing your advice, Howard, that people rarely talk about is don't go crazy spending a bunch of money and put in tiers, right? Put in 15% on Noah Brown and 12% on Romeo Doubs and 10% on Elijah Moore, all with the same player, and just make sure you get one. Jonathan Mingo to me is more of a stash on the bench. And I know we said we don't want to stash guys, but we have the catalyst. The change in the guard and the possible live tryouts and trying to see what these young guys have. Very rarely do we have that, but we saw it for Amon-Ra St. Brown as a rookie. Week 10, first 10 weeks, garbage. Couldn't even use him. Then they changed the play caller. A bunch of guys got hurt. Wheels up. So you gotta take a little stash on the guy like that. So I like them all. I think Britt crushed it with the article this week.
All right. And then finally at the tight end position, our top 3 waiver wire claims at tight end. Brevin Jordan. We don't know how long Dalton Schultz is going to be out. Isaiah Likely just got a very strong endorsement from his head coach, who turned down the thoughts of Zach Ertz, or Tucker Kraft, who's already now in line for targets in that Green Bay offense. And again, Christian Watson has a hamstring made out of Cheetos.
Exactly. I'll tell you, the Isaiah Likely. I mean, I when I go and see that he's only rostered in like 30 to 40% of the leagues, that's insulting to me personally, because we broke everything down that first game, why it wasn't as bad as people thought. This past week, he came out, got a bunch of targets. He's in the Mark Andrews role. He got virtually every snap. That's the guy rest of way. I will say, Brevin Jordan, I understand the idea in really deep leagues, but everything we said about Dalton Schultz is still true for this guy. He plays the Jets this week, which are pretty good against the tight end. That's his best matchup rest of way for fantasy. He gets the Titans, which are the number 2 team versus the tight end. He gets the Browns, which are the number 1 team. And then the last week, he plays the Titans again, the number 2 team again. So arguably the worst schedule I've maybe ever seen for a tight end. Brevin Jordan, Dalton Schultz, leave them on the wire as a trap. You want your opponents to pick up and play that player. Go get Isaiah Likely, drop what you have to on him. And Tucker Kraft, as long as the Christian Watson injury is longer term, which it sounds like it might be, why not, right? If Musgrave's out and Watson's out, now it's a 3-headed monster, especially if Aaron Jones is still out. I mean, Kraft should be just fine. His matchups aren't amazing either, though, this week especially. So just be careful. But Isaiah Likely is the guy that we want.
All right, so there you go, guys. Again, check out the article over at fantasyalarm.com from Britt Flynn for the waiver wire ads. She also gives you fab suggestions as well. Hit that QR code right there, or go to fantasyalarm.com/let's go. Use that promo code let's go, and you'll get 50% off your first month. So boom, immediate discount. Win some money playing DFS with us, do some betting with us, all the fun stuff there, and it'll just end up paying for your subscription. Before we get back to the chat, Coop, want to shout out to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Thank you so much for sponsoring. Again, there you go. Right there is another QR code for you guys to zap if you are into those pick'em contests and you like putting in, trying to 3x your money, 6x your money, 10x your money. The more players you pick for the pick'em contest, the higher your odds are for return. Now, Coop and I, we give you plays throughout the week, and then we finalize it again on Thursday. So between today and tomorrow and Thursday, you should have a good number of players to choose from while we wait for Underdog to name their promo player, right? We haven't gotten our gimme player yet from them, so we'll just kind of look at.
Howard, there's no promo player because they looked at this Patriots Steelers game, and they can't safely say that any player is going to have more than half a yard in this game.
Right? I mean, you can't, right? Mitch Trubisky, more than half. I don't think you can guarantee that.
I don't know. Yeah, thank you, Burns. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, let's look at a couple of players here. If they're not going to get a promo pick from them, let's give them some promo picks for ourselves. Who do you like this week, Coop?
Yeah. So honestly, I talked about it with our waiver session there, but I'll rehash it here. For Thursday, like Zeke Elliott, and I'm going to come back on Thursday's show and give you guys a tackle monster, because I think there's a few good options. Hopefully they'll set us up for one this week, but I'm definitely working towards building a Thursday one, which you're going to put the special promo play in as well. Zeke Elliott, we've seen it already this year where he's been the goal line back, and they like getting him screen passes. He's guaranteed these touches every week that are high percentage plays. Like, he's going to get the screen pass, he's going to get the goal line. And now with Ramondre Stevenson suffering the high ankle sprain on the hip drop tackle, he's out this week. So I mean, I know I'm banned from saying the name Ty Montgomery on this show, and probably for good reason. So you're not going to get.
I'd rather hear you tell a story about Marshawn Lynch than talk Ty Montgomery.
Exactly. The thing is, we know these other guys are going to sprinkle in to some degree, but Zeke Elliott, they're going to lean on him. That's why he's with the team. So I think that any touchdown is a good play for him. I'm going to go higher on that. And as they add more options for yards and receptions and things like that, maybe we'll sprinkle a little more Zeke on there, but I think it can still
I went and I was looking over at Underdog and I was like, oh, I got to have a play for today's show. Right. And that was the immediate one that I was about to do. And then I come over here and I see you've already got it filled out. I was like, all right, well, I mean, so double your fun there on the Ezekiel Elliott one. Like that's definitely, and especially at 1.25x, the little bonus that they're giving you on that. I think that's a rock solid call there. I was ready to do it. So I'll go on the other side of that game then. And I'll go with George Pickens, 40.5 receiving yards. And I'm going to say higher for that. And I'll tell you what, you look at what the Patriots do, and you know that their defense, they're going to be trying to clamp down on Deontay Johnson, who is that number one wideout, and he helps move the chains. You know that the Patriots are going to look to try and stifle the run because you've got Najee Harris and you've got, Jalen Warren in there. They struggle in DVOA coverage against the opposite, the Z receiver, the wide receiver too, in that system. That is George Pickens. And we also did see Pickens get some extra targets last week. We know that the coaching staff between Eric Faulkner and Mike Sullivan have both talked about getting George Pickens a little bit more heavily involved in this. It is a struggle with Mitch Trubisky, but we've seen Trubisky air it out, and I don't see a real issue here with Pickens grabbing 41 yards, could possibly do it on one catch. Like I had Joe Mixon's receiving yards prop for last night's game. But there you go. George Pickens, higher than 40.5 receiving yards, Coop.
Yeah, I'm loving it, man. And you mentioned DVOA. The Patriots quietly in DVOA, number 2 against the run. So they've crept their way up. And when I start thinking about teams that are good against the run, like DVOA is not the end all. You got the Jaguars, you got the Browns, you got the Ravens. I can't really name 5, 6, 7 teams that are better against the run without naming the Patriots eventually. So I really think the way that they operate, where they're stout against the run, they take away the best player. They'll tell you that their whole plan is to take away your best player. It's got to be Freiermuth and Pickett. So it's got to be those guys, man. So I think I'm with you on that. Let's go. Let's lock it in.
Let's lock it in. All right. So there you go. Those are our picks there. Again, you can go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Use that promo code ALARM. They'll give you an instant deposit match up to $100. Zap that QR code right there if you want. If you haven't signed up over there, come have some fun, some props. I'm not a huge player prop guy. I've never been a huge player prop guy. I prefer game bets. But I don't know, man. I hit all 3 of my props for last night's game. Right. I also had the Bengals plus the points. So
I'll tell you, I had a good day yesterday too. I think for some reason I sat down and said I'm gonna bet $500 worth of bets on this game, and walked away with like $1,200. I had.
I saw your $100 bet that you threw out there on Evan Ingram's touchdown.
100 on Ingram touchdown. I had $200 on Ingram over 46.5 yards. I did the little same game parlay with Mixon and took 2.5 receptions and the yardage, 19.5, and that got it to even money. So I threw another $200 on that. So yeah, man, it was
he practically
bankrupt the
casino.
That was a little John and Pemba with the little tricks, man. We got moves. So yeah,
I might need to borrow something, Coop. I got a little toothpick. If everybody's telling me not to chop, I got to.
All right, let me. If they don't chop, maybe we can help you out.
I'm gonna have to put like a bandana on my head and like tie it all up so that it just kind of holds it all in place.
Old school. You got the. You gonna tie your tooth to a string and slam the door?
What tooth? It's
a risky
broken.
operation, but it'll
Oh,
be
that's
worth
right. Is that how? Yeah. How did that happen? What happened, man?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it was a busted up tooth. I lost the crown back in January. Been sitting there and struggling and suffering ever since. And it all kind of came to a head.
Last time I lost a tooth was in college, or cracked a tooth was in college. A friend of mine, good friend of mine still, my buddy Guy, threw a frozen.
Buddy Guy?
His name is Buddy.
I know that guy.
His name is Guy. He threw a frozen loaf of bread through my window, and we had just got in trouble for housing stuff right before. So I went out and in the ensuing wrestling match / fight, chipped a tooth. So it was over a frozen bread incident.
Great story, compelling and rich.
Right.
Just your classic just your normal college stuff.
All right, we got a couple of minutes left here of the show. Let's go back to the chat, see who's in there. Chargie's got a question here. He sat Chuba the last 2 weeks and missed out. Do I start him this week against the Saints? I need 2 running backs between Chuba, Warren, Dillon, and Spears.
Yeah, I think of that crew, Chuba is the one I'm definitely starting, right? Because we saw what would happen. Like I said, add Chuba, add Miles Sanders, see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen. Miles Sanders clearly was on the back burner. It's obvious now that he was on the side of the coaching staff, Frank Wright and Deuce Staley. He was clearly on the back burner here. Chuba looked much better. So he's the one guy of this crew that we know is getting more than half of the work. Warren's going to split work in a tough matchup. A.J. Dillon ran more routes than he usually does. I could be convinced to go Dillon against the Giants
this week.
Yeah,
man.
I think that's where I go, unless Derrick Henry's out, and then it's Chuba and Spears. But if Henry's playing, I think I'm going to go Chuba and Dillon there.
Yeah, I like that. Skinny says they have not placed Derrick Henry in the concussion protocol, so yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it would be rare for them to turn around and do that now, right?
It would definitely be rare unless he starts showing some symptoms.
If he wakes up and says I have a headache, then maybe. But I don't know. Derrick Henry doesn't seem like that kind of guy to me.
You would think that, but there are a lot of people who don't seem like that kind of a guy to me, right? I mean, did anybody think that Lev Bell was going to be such a douche and not play football?
Yeah,
actually, sit out. Like, I mean,
that's true. He seemed like the other kind of guy to me. He seemed like he didn't realize how good that system was for what he does. Too.
Yeah,
like it was perfect. The zone blocking and everything.
Robert Flores says, thanks, Howard. I cashed last night on Mixon receiving yards, ETN, and Trevor Lawrence props. Yeah, so I threw it was Trevor Lawrence over 1.5 touchdown passes. It was Evan Engram over 47.5 receiving yards, and then I had Mixon over the 19.5 receiving yards there as well. Josh Wagner on the Fantasy Alarm Show gave out ETN's receiving yards prop. I think it was only at that was like 14.5, which seemed a little weird.
That's nothing. That is odd. I mean, we've been saying it all year. I don't know, the Jags just let you throw to the running back. I think they generate a lot of pressure, so you can do the screens and stuff, so the Joe Mixon one felt like a free money to me.
Screw the Jags. Bunch of Jags on that team. They ruined it for me, right? It could have, you know what? It would have been all nice and harmonious if the Jags won, okay, fine. So there would still be, so instead of 7 people left in one survivor pool, there would be 28 people left in that pool. And I could just kind of go through it. But then I'd still be alive in the other pool, which would have had 100 people in it. It's now down to like 52. 52, I'd be like, yeah, I'll chop right now. Right?
Yeah.
52 people for 150,000.
10 grand.
I'll chop.
No, what is it? How many? Those are crazy, man. I got to get in some of those. I didn't run any of those this year.
All right. Well, then you know what? I'll get you into both of them next year. How about that?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do our own Fantasy Alarm one too. That'd be cool.
Ooh, yeah. You know what? You never want to be the person who runs that pool.
Oh no, obviously not me.
I would be in it.
No,
I mean, like the people who run those pools, like the amount of crap that they have to deal with and take. Like, I mean, people with who forget to set their picks, and then they're like, well, the games haven't started yet. Let me take the afternoon one. Like over and over again.
Here's a text I sent my dad that proves that I would have definitely picked the Bengals.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, that's happened. So
for sure. I know.
I have one friend, and she runs the big pool. She runs the $150,000 pool. And I mean, she shares with me like some of the emails and the messages that come in. And it's unbelievable. Like, how are you legit going to email somebody at 2:00 in the afternoon Eastern time? Games have already been going on for an hour, and then be like, oh, no, I meant to take this team. And that team is like up 21-3 in the second quarter.
Right.
This is not Nam. There are rules.
You get the email from the guy, and he's like, "Oh, didn't make my pick. I totally chipped my tooth." Well, you know what I mean.
I always make my pick. What I do? Seriously, I go to the site. If I win and that's it. If I know that I've won and boom, it locks me in as the win, then I immediately make my pick for next week. I don't you don't have to lock it in. It doesn't lock until the games, but I immediately put it in there. So just in case anything happens, I at least have a pick in there.
John always tells me to do that with the showdown slate, and I always forget. And then on the Thursday show, we make our showdown lineup, and I put it in, and it says this league filled every Thursday. So this week, maybe I will. In honor of that, maybe I will. I won't, but maybe I will.
Can't do it.
All right. Well, stay tuned. Tomorrow show, we'll probably crowdsource some pot chopping again. See what everybody thinks. I'm going to throw this out there. I'm just going to throw a poll out there on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. If you are in a survivor pool in week 14, are you taking the Saints? Are you taking the Ravens? Or are you taking the Steelers? So we'll do that. Coop, before we get on out of here, what do you got coming up this week as far as like articles, rankings, you name it?
Yeah. So rankings will be updated. Hot takes articles out yesterday for today, because we'll talk about the rest of the week. I got stuff every day. Rankings are coming out today. And also make sure you check out the tight end article. This is the time of year where we switch over from yin and yang to the there's still going to be a section. There's going to be a standalone section where we set it and forget it. The next section is going to be yin and yang kind of, but it's going to be matchup based. I'm going through and I'm going to work out the matchups and say, hey, you know what? We do trust this guy, but just in case, here is a whole thing that breaks down, what matchups are going to work. So the special yin and yang articles, and it's going to be like that rest of season so that you can focus on, if you don't have a locked in guy, you can avoid the really, truly difficult matchups and maybe sneak a guy in for the really good ones. There's a lot of middle of the pack matchups, but at the top and bottom, there's some spots we want to either pick or avoid. So new version of that. So make sure you check out that today. That's going to come out probably tonight around 7 or 8. I want to get the rankings up first. So the rankings for every position will be up first, and then the yin and yang tight end article will come right after that.
I like it. All right. Well, there you go, folks. Everything you need to know about tight ends and fantasy football, we got you covered over at fantasyalarm.com. I want to thank everybody for taking part in chat. Thank you for hitting like. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button and joining us here on Alarm Fantasy Football. Plenty more stuff coming up on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. You're going to have the Better Sports Betting Show at 4 p.m. Eastern. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, you can find me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 5 o'clock. Or if you're a DFS player for NBA, 5 p.m. right here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. John Impemba and James Grande always doing the work over there. A big thank you to Brian Burns, our illustrious producer. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Looks good on that card, too.
Shout out Brian Burns.
Gotta love and respect Brian Burns.
He said it for me.
All right, but that's going to do it for us here on Alarm Fantasy Football. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.
Adios.